to the cloud. All right, for the recording, welcome back. We are ACI Course 7, Class 9. It's March 17th, 2025. For those of you new to ACI courses with me, I like for our review class to be taught to me by you, because that way you get the seeds to see yourself as teacher and the seeds to be seen as teacher. And anyway, so if you care to play on the review class, in the next class, I will assign the final exam questions to each of you. And then your job to deliver it is to make sure that your students get the essence, the essential information so that they can do their final exam well. So you can teach it, or if you need to, you can just read from the answer key. And you have, the weekend to prepare. So you're not obligated if you don't wish to do so. When I assign the questions next class, Friday's class, you're welcome to say no, thank you. But people say it's fun, and we don't record it. So you're not gonna, go out to the universe. So you think about it between now and Friday. That class will be next Monday morning for me. Okay. The other announcement I'd like to make is that my intention then is to carry on with ACI Course 8, Death in the Realms of Existence, starting on May 2nd. So you'll have a little over a month between the two courses because of the 10 days at Diamond Mountain in April. And something I'm doing shortly after that I won't be available till May 2nd. So I'll send out a note asking if you intend to take that class, because I start a new email list, right? Okay, so that said, let's gather our minds here as we usually do. Please bring your attention to your breath until you hear from me again. Now bring to mind that being who for you is a manifestation of ultimate love, ultimate compassion, ultimate wisdom. And see them there with you. They are gazing at you with their unconditional love for you, smiling at you with their holy great compassion. Their wisdom radiates from them. That beautiful golden light encompassing you in its light. And then we hear them say, bring to mind someone you know who's hurting in some way. Feel how much you would like to be able to help them. Recognize how the worldly ways we try fall short. How wonderful it will be when we can also help them in some deep and ultimate way, a way through which they will go on to stop their distress forever. Deep down, we know this is possible. Learning about karma and emptiness, we glimpse how it's possible. And so I invite you to grow that wish into a longing. And that longing into an intention. Then turn your mind back to that precious holy being. We know that they know what we need to know, what we need to learn yet, what we need to do yet to become one who can help this other in this deep and ultimate way. And so we ask them, please, please teach us that. And they are so happy that we've asked. Of course, they agree. Our gratitude arises. We want to offer them something exquisite. And so we think of the perfect world they are teaching us how to create. We imagine we can hold it in our hands and we offer it to them, following it with our promise to practice what they teach us, using our refuge prayer to make our promise. Here is the great earth, filled with fragrant incense and covered with a blanket of flowers. The great mountain, 4 lands, wearing the jewel of the sun and the moon. In my mind, I make them the paradise of a Buddha and offer it all to you. By this deed, may every living being experience the pure world. Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kamnirya Tayami. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest, may we reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest, may we reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest, may all beings reach their total awakening for the benefit of every single other. All right, we've studied up to number 30 through number 34 of the secondary vows called the did bads. They're deeds that we do that we can fully restore by confessing to at least one person who would understand and doing the 4 powers, of course. And deeds that are not as serious a negative imprint on our minds as doing a root vow behavior we're learning. So those first 34 were groups of vows to avoid certain behaviors that had to do with growing our ability to practice the 6 perfections. So these next set of vows are called vows to avoid deeds that would be offenses against the 3rd kind of morality. So do you remember the 3 moralities? The first one is avoiding harming others. The second one is gathering goodness. So our efforts to do the 6 perfections, even long before they're done perfectly, of course, are in this category of morality that gathers goodness. And then the 3rd morality was doing both of those, but with this heart that is intending to reach total Buddhahood so that we can help all beings in that ultimate way someday, to help them reach their own freedom from suffering, nirvana or Buddhahood. So this 3rd morality is the morality of working to reach our own total enlightenment for others' benefit, of course. So now these vows are about behaviors related to helping others. So were all the rest, but not so directly, as we'll see when we get their wording. So number 35 of the secondary vows, I will avoid not helping someone in need. So these are a bit more difficult to understand. And again, keep in mind that we try, right? The keeping the vowed behavior is trying. It doesn't we don't break the vow if we don't succeed. It's the trying that is the important piece. So vow number 35, I will avoid not going to help somebody in need. But it's like, wait, everybody's in need. So aren't I breaking this now? Because I'm here with you, but I don't know, my neighbor maybe needs a cup of coffee. How do we do that? But if you think about it, it's like, wow, just the wish to be able to help everybody all the time, that's planting seeds for this emanation being that you're going to be someday. that isn't just one emanation walking through, but it's like everything for everybody all the time. Cool, right? It's beyond intellect. So this attitude of part of my bodhisattva vows, the behavior I'm growing, is this wanting to help anybody that I see who's in any kind of need at all. And then technically, there's always something we can do. When we become aware of someone in need, even if we can't physically go to them or call them or do anything, we can tonglen, right? We can just send a little prayer. And that is helping. We can smile at the scowling bus driver. That is helping. It's not, solving whatever problem he's scowling about at the moment. They're ways to try to help doesn't necessarily mean exactly the need that they've got at the moment, if that's not within our capacity. So there are going to be yemes, there are going to be exceptions, of course, to this one. So Geshe-la was describing like somebody's in need of help. And we think, oh my gosh, they're in some certain situation that they just can't negotiate themselves. And once I find that out, then I would go and try to help them negotiate that problem, figure out a solution. But what we're talking about here also is just to be paying attention to what's going on with the people around us, to see, are their hands full? Can I grab the door for them? Are they looking grumpy and upset? Can I smile at them? Is their water glass empty? Can I fill it? Right? Those are just little awarenesses of things that someone might need help with. They aren't these great big, oh my gosh, I have a doctor's appointment, I can't get there. Can you help me? Sure. But how many times does that actually happen? How often do we really become aware of somebody's that kind of need? If they don't call us and ask us, we're not responsible. We don't break this vow by not taking them to their appointment if we don't know about it. And even if we know about it and they say, yeah, I've got my, cousin taking me, fine. We don't have to step in and fix the problem faster. But our bodhisattvahood that we're trying to grow is this alertness to other beings, situations around us, and attention to that, as opposed to our ordinary habit of, right, self-involved. My hands are full. How am I going to get the door open? I'm thirsty. How am I going to get water? Right? That's natural. We do that well. Turning that on to someone, to others' needs, is what this bodhisattva behavior is talking about. So there in commentaries say there are a lot of classical ways to help people. So helping someone who's undertaking some kind of task. And Geshe-la says, when you're talking to a Dharma group that has a Dharma center, this is the kind of, this particular vow is the one that helps a Dharma center stay cohesive and progressive, helps it stay, because everybody is on alert for how they can contribute to helping the place thrive. So it's less that you have to have, somebody assigned to clean the bathroom, somebody assigned to sweep the temple after the teaching. It's like people just step up and do it. And how wonderful that would be, right? If you just had the overseer making sure that everything gets done, but not ever having to, right, be coordinated all. It's human nature that we need to learn how to do that. But when you you can imagine a group of people who's everybody's eager to help out in some way. And everybody has their way of seeing what is needed. And then they step in and do it. It makes for a really lovely place. So next one is helping someone who's traveling, helping someone who's trying to learn a language, helping someone who's trying to learn a skill, like a livelihood, as long as that skill isn't harmful to themselves or others, helping someone in danger of losing their property. Again, as long as it doesn't put you or them in a dangerous situation. Helping someone who's trying to fix a split between people. Helping someone who's planning a special virtuous event. And helping someone who's undertaking any virtuous deed. So when we have the list of vows, this vow is broken down into all those different ways of helping, in my book anyway. And so, number 35, it's not listed 35A, B, C, D, but we have different numbers. If you have this list of vows. Yeah, it's like 107 until 114. It's 7 different ways to follow it, right? They're not different vows, it's just one vow. Then there are exceptions, of course. Yeah, we're on 35. It's someone helping someone undertaking some kind of task, traveling, learning a language, learning a skill as long as it doesn't harm, helping protect their property, trying to fix a split, planning a special virtuous event, and undertaking any virtuous deed. So exceptions to this. If you are sick and you're aware of somebody's need, you don't break the vow by not going to help. If you're already committed to someone or something else, if you're busy with something more virtuous than what they need, if you can refer them to someone who can help them better than you can, that's still helping. If you know they are not able to benefit from your help, again, to the best of our understanding, if they have other means through which to get assistance, if your helping would create more problems than help. I've been in that situation. If you need to teach them a lesson, but be careful about that one. If you would break a freedom vow in order to help them, you don't break this vow by not doing it. But probably there's another way to find a help. And then if it would upset a lot of people for them to see you do it. And again, all of these are based on our own best judgment of the situation, our own best judgment of our capacity, our own best judgment of their apparent need. We are the ones watching, not some God in the sky, not some Buddha. This is all how our behavior is affecting our own minds. So Geshe said in the end, this particular vow is the show by example vow. Right? The way we behave amongst others influences others less by the actual thing we do than by the attitude we have. All right, so we're on to number 36. I will avoiding to serve the sick. I will avoid not going to help somebody who's sick. Meaning when we know somebody is sick, we try to go help them in some way. To not do so breaks the vow. But there are exceptions. If we ourselves are sick. If we can't help, if our time is committed elsewhere, if helping them would upset too many people, don't quite understand that one. If you can refer them, if they have other help, and if they can still help themselves, or if your spiritual work would be interrupted, meaning if you're in retreat, if you're in retreat, I don't know how you'd find out that somebody was sick, but if you did, you would stay in retreat and help them with their sickness. Can actually do more probably from there. So in Jetsun Kappa's commentary, he like pauses in the list and he says, now wait a minute. Once we knew these vowed behaviors, why wouldn't we just follow them? Especially these ones, right? These are vows to do stuff as opposed to just avoid doing stuff. And he says, look, there's two states of mind, like two classical reasons why once we know about the vows, we don't set about to keep them really well. And they're called those two states of mind and those two other states of mind. It's kind of fun. Let me get my vocabulary list up here. There's down here, Semni and Semshenni. Semni means two states of mind, and Semshenni means two other states of mind. Shen means other. So these two, which makes four states of mind, are these two classical reasons why we might not do a good job at following these vowed behaviors. In the first two states of mind, those two are narsem and kongtro. Narsem narsem is this word for malice or ill will. We heard malice in the obstacles to meditation that Jetsun Kappa described. What Narsem is trying to describe is this desire to hurt somebody. And you know, why we would have that desire, many reasons. but for whatever reason, it's like our interaction with them physically and mentally is that they've done something and we have this sense of we want to get them back in some way. Contro is anger, which also is a big topic, right? Anger has so many different aspects to it, but anger is based on they did that to me, an unpleasant thing that they did to me. So it's the blame that probably underlies why we would want to hurt them. So those two states of mind go together, not always, right? Not everybody we're mad at do we want to hurt, of course. And we can want to hurt somebody and not be mad at them. But those two states of mind, either one, and especially both together, will influence our reaction to becoming aware of someone's need or our impulse to want to go help someone who's sick. So, for example, if we know somebody's sick and for whatever awful reason, we just didn't care enough and like wanted or even cared in a negative way and actually wanted them to go on being sick, of course we wouldn't go to try to help. Or if we're angry with them and then we hear they get sick, it's like, oh, right? A little bit of ugly personal satisfaction that they're suffering in some way. Anger does that to us. So these two states of mind, not necessarily together, are called the two states of mind, semni. And so you'll see in the commentaries, it's like the reason one might not follow this vow is because of semni, those two states of mind, being influenced by one or the other or both. Then and that contributes to our choice of behavior that chooses to not go help. Then there are two other states of mind also that influence us such that we don't go help in a given situation. Those are called semsheni, the two other states of mind. And those two other states of mind are here, lelo and yomle. Lelo, everybody seems to know, laziness, meaning this kind of enjoyment or satisfaction with not doing stuff, not doing those virtues, not doing things that help us break out of our old habits. It's like the opposite of the fourth perfection. Fourth practice, perfection is joyous effort, having a good time doing those deeds of the bodhisattva, avoiding the harmful ones and doing the positive ones. Lelo is just, I don't want to, I don't feel like it, that kind of attitude. Then it's not really a klesha. So they're making the distinction between narsam kongtro, those two states of mind, semni, as being actively afflicted, upset in these two ways with the other person or somebody, I guess, that makes us not go help in the virtuous event, not go help somebody with traveling, not, right? We're like upset about something. Whereas lelo and yomle is more just, I don't feel like it. It's not important enough to me. It's not an active emotional upset. So they say it's afflicted and non-afflicted, but of course, Lelo and Nyomle are still afflicted in the sense that they're colored by selfishness, and that's an afflicted state of mind. But they're not this active upset that the Semni, two states of mind, is talking about. So Lelo is just plain old laziness. Nyomle is more a spiritual laziness. Means here it means we are not considering our guidelines of our vows to be important enough to keep in a particular given situation. And we may have this strong, good opinion of ourselves. Yeah, I follow my vows pretty well. And then we come across this certain situations, or we ourselves, life has gone in a certain direction, and it makes it especially difficult to put our needs aside and go help somebody else. And at that point, this spiritual laziness takes over. And we just say, gosh, I just can't go do that right now. It's saying to our own mind, my vowed behavior is not the most important thing to go by. Like we've fallen back into the needs of worldly life. It happens to all of us. So again, this is not a beat yourself up about it. It's when we learn that we probably do have times where it's like, okay, keeping my vowed behavior has slipped in priority here, and time to crank up the choice-making behavior. With this state of mind of Nyumle, we are not respecting the vows. We are not taking them seriously. The message we're sending to our own mind is they're not important enough to make the effort about. This state of mind is Nyumle. They call it spiritual laziness, but the English words don't quite get it. Geshe-la call it spiritual stupidity. That's more helpful, maybe. The problem with both Lelo and Nyomle is that we don't advance spiritually. We don't have those bigger little experiences that show us that our effort in changing our behavior is paying off. It is hard to change behavior and not see any result. Like if you're doing your training on the keyboard, you're learning to play the piano, and it's because you want to perform at your daughter's wedding, and you practice your chords and you practice the music, and it just stays terrible, right? How long would it take to get discouraged and say, I give up, I'm going to find some other offering to make at my daughter's wedding because this is just not changing? And so if we apply that to our spiritual life, it would be true that before too long, we'd like go, I'm not getting anywhere. And Geshe-la says if we're falling into that, it is in fact because we're not taking our vows seriously enough to actually get off our automatic pilot behavior and be different than we were before. When we be positively different than we were before, the seeds planted in that way have this stronger power than our automatic pilot seeds. And he says again and again and again, you will have little glimpses of progress. maybe not the great big realizations that change you forever. Those take some time to come. But the little coincidences, and synchronicities, those are evidence that our spiritual practice is strong enough to be making changes. And our habit tends to be, oh, that was a coincidence. Oh, wasn't that interesting? And we don't connect the dot. It's like, oh, that synchronicity, that's an angel sign, right? That's a sign that my behavior changing practice is working. These bodhisattva vows, the behaviors that we avoid doing and the behaviors that we do as a result of them, are designed to create the causes for our Buddhahood. The pratimoksha vows are designed to create the causes for nirvana. We will reach nirvana along the way to Buddhahood. The pratimoksha vows are not to be disrespected. We need those too. But when we understand, when we really connect this dot, the reason bodhisattvas act the way they do is because they're creating the morality that will create their Buddha, them, and Buddha paradise emanating. To the best of our capacity. That's all it takes, is to the best of our capacity. But our capacity needs to be pushed, right? Our capacity is here now. And then we get to where, okay, this is easy. That's when we push our capacity up a little bit. And you keep pushing. You don't start here and try to push your capacity to way up here, right? We won't be able to do it. But little bit, little bit, little bit. And you don't even realize the capacity you're at as you increase. Somebody said, if we take our vows lightly, they will take us lightly as well. If the power of the vows comes by way of our attention to them. All right, number 37. I will avoid not trying to stop someone's suffering. The vow says, I will avoid not stopping someone's suffering. Can we stop anybody's suffering? No. But can we try? Yes. Will what we try stop their suffering? Maybe, maybe not. That will be according to their karma. That will be according to our karma for their karma. But to be aware of ourselves trying is what plants these powerful, important seeds. So the suffering they're talking about here is either mental or physical suffering, and suffering that's obvious to us, that we can be aware of, right? We can only know someone else's pervasive suffering by way of seeing them as a being in a samsaric world. We know they have it, but we can see that somebody's, I don't know, limping, or they've got a knee injury. We can see that their hands are full and they need to get through the door. We can see those kinds of distress. And then our mind says, yeah, but like everybody's in suffering in some way. Like every beggar on the street, I'll never get home. And Geshe-la said, well, what if Arya Asanga had just stepped over that dog and gone on to town? He may never have met Lord Maitreya, in which case we wouldn't have those 5 books and the rest of his teachings. And it's like, it was because he cared about the dog. He wasn't thinking, oh, this dog might be Lord Maitreya. Oh, this, right? He wasn't thinking that, according to the story, as I understand it. But his compassion opened and his heart opened. All right. So the exceptions to I will avoid not trying to stop someone suffering are the same exceptions in number 36. Which are the same exceptions as in number 35. You know, if you're sick, if you can't do it, etc., if they have somebody else. Number 38, I will avoid not trying to reason with someone who is acting carelessly karmically. I will avoid not trying to reason with someone who is acting carelessly karmically. So this can refer to someone who knows about, who we seem to believe knows about karma and emptiness, like a person in the Dharma. And it applies to someone not, as far as we know, in the Dharma. And our response in a given situation would be different for those two categories of people, wouldn't it? Someone who has studied karma and emptiness and we see them doing something harmful, you know, hopefully we're not going to step up and go, what kind of bodhisattva are you doing that kind of behavior? Don't you know better? But rather, you know, skillfully intervene in some way and help them see that maybe they could solve their problem or achieve their task in some way that would be less harmful to themselves or others. But how do we do that with someone who isn't Dharma wise and most likely isn't even interested to being Dharma wise? And we see them doing things that they're trying to get a good result, and they're doing something that you know so clearly will harm them in the future. How does one intervene and help them if they haven't asked and they're not interested? It takes skill to somehow get in the way and try to get them to go in a different direction. This one says trying to reason with them. I think many of us have been in a situation where we try to use the logic and it just falls short. You know, if we have the seeds for someone's logic to fall short on someone else, it's because we've done that, rejected someone's reasoning, even though the reasoning made sense. So very likely we might try to reason with someone. Look, lying to the boss is not going to get us the result. And they go, yes, but I've done it before. And every time I do it, I get the result I want. There's nothing you can say. That's been my personal experience. You know, how are you going to convince them not to lie, right? To keep this vow, it may be, you know, I'm not willing to do that myself. And here are the reasons why. And maybe they listen and maybe they don't. But this vow says, be bold enough to say, I personally would not do that and can't do that. And if you're going to fire me because I can't do that, well, then so be it, right? That would be setting a strong example. Scary, right? You've got mouths to feed at home. You can't be without a job. It would be a big act of truth. So I'm not saying that you have to quit your job over something like this to not break your vow. That applying the skill to any given situation. And if we find ourselves in the situation where we have to say, No, it's a higher thing to keep my job so I can feed my family, and so I'm willing to say that lie, but man, I'm regretting it while I do it. I'll do a big 4 powers. I'm going to be really careful where I'm putting people in positions of needing to do something that they feel is not right, to avoid having to do this in the future. So again, all of this is our own mind watching, our own ability to weigh the circumstances and choose a behavior based on this bigger outcome than the immediate one. This vow helps us do it. Now, there are exceptions. If you are not capable of dissuading them, you don't break this vow by not trying, or you don't break the vow by trying and failing, right? To try and fail to sway them is keeping the vow. Then second, if you can refer them to someone more capable, if you see that they'll realize it themselves and correct themselves, you don't have to be the one. If you know they have a spiritual teacher who will correct them, you don't have to do it. If you think they would continue to do the behavior just to spite you, if you know they won't listen to you, or if you need to teach them a lesson, of course, be careful with that one. Number 37, I will avoid failing to repay someone who has helped me. So the reason we might fail to repay somebody who's helped me would be if we just didn't think that what they'd done for us, was important enough, or just out of laziness or this spiritual inconsideration, or just not thinking it's important to pay people back, repay someone's kindness. So we could be angry with them and wish ill on them, those two states of mind, so we don't pay them back. Or we could have the two other states of mind, just don't feel like it, or don't see the benefit of paying them back, and so we don't pay them back. He points out that another thing that will block us paying somebody back is if in that cultural situation where what you pay them back needs to be more valuable than what they did for you, and you don't feel that you have the capacity to pay them back in a more valuable way. So we justify not paying them back at all. So again, to the best of our ability to discern how they've helped, and the best of our ability to discern how we might benefit them back. Geshe-la pointed out, the tradition points out, that probably the most important kindness that we would be wanting to repay is the kindness of the lineage lamas, beyond the immediate one who's teaching, but the kindness of those ones who made it their life's purpose to preserve the teachings and pass them on. Geshe-la was a really brilliant person. He was brilliant when he was a kid, and he could have come out of Princeton and I don't know, rock the business world or, really been an innovator in any arena that he had been interested in. Unfortunately, his interest was his spiritual life. And he applied that incredible virtue to preserving the Dharma and teaching it in a way that hadn't been taught in the West before. And devoted his whole life to that. And Ken Rinpoche, the same. Entered the monastery when he was 7 years old. He could have left when he finished at age 20, 22. He could have left and gone into worldly life, but he didn't. He stayed, and preserved the Dharma and passed it on in the West. And his teacher the same. And his teacher the same. And his teacher the same. That we really owe that kindness. And how we repay the kindness of the teachers is take what they teach us and apply it to life. We don't have to become teachers ourselves necessarily, like their formal way. But to practice what they teach, to put it into practice, is how we repay. It's called making offerings to them, which shows our own mind that we value what they've done for us. But the best offering, Geshe-la always says, is to offer them your practice. I was in a situation where I was all ready to yell back at that darn boss, and you know what? I really said, I'm sorry you're upset with me. How can I help you? And they were so flabbergasted that for 10 seconds they stopped yelling, and then they started right up again. But I offer that to you, that kind of thing. Okay. That doesn't cost anything but a little behavior change. So there are exceptions to failing to repay somebody. If we are waiting for a better opportunity to repay them, we don't break the vow while we wait. If we are a high bodhisattva and with great love, we need to teach them a lesson. If they would be embarrassed or uncomfortable if you did repay them, or if they would really prefer it if you did not. Number 40. I will avoid failing to stop another's grief. Can we stop another's grief? No, of course not. Can we try? Yes. Grief usually means we've lost a loved one, but grief comes about with loss of anything that's important to us. So loss of material things, loss of a pet, of course, loss. The exceptions to this one, they say, are the same as number 35. So go back to number 35. If you're sick, if you can't really do it, if somebody else could do it better, all of those. Probably we've all had circumstances of grief. And if you think, like, what were the things that others did that gave a few moments of a little bit of relief? They probably were not big things, not the counselor who sat down with us so much as the person that just, oh, I'm so sorry, and gave you a hug. No explanation, no, it's going to get better, no what is that called? Placation. Just, I feel for you. that's helping somebody. Take them some flowers, right? Take them some cookies. Just someone who's grieving, who knows somebody else feels and understands, as opposed to they're grieving, so I will avoid them. Or there's nothing I can do. So sorry. Or that attitude, you'll get over it, because we all do. Like none of that is helpful when somebody's grieving. All right, let's take a break. I'm starting. I'm back on. Okay, so let's go on. Number 41. I will avoid not giving material assistance to someone who needs it. Wait, didn't we have that already? Root vow number 2 had this, I will avoid giving dharma or material assistance. But that one was motivated out of possessiveness, if we remember, right? The secondary vow is when we fail to give material assistance out of those 2 states of mind or those 2 other states of mind, says the commentary. So out of anger, jealousy, ill will, not caring, not feeling like it, disrespecting the others or disrespecting our vows, those states of mind for not giving is what breaks the secondary vow versus the root vow. The exceptions are if you don't have what they need, you don't break this vow by not giving it to them, not helping them get it. If what they want is harmful for them or others. And the scripture says, especially if it would be harmful to the king, which I've seen explanations of this, and it's just hard to relate to. Somehow, in Bodhisattva times, they lived in places where kings owned everything. And if someone was in need of something, and you had the ability to help them to get it, if by getting it for them somehow that went against your behavior towards the king, you don't break the vow by not giving it to the person, because you don't dare hurt the king. How you could hurt a king, I don't understand. But, and how that relates to our modern world where we don't have kings who own everything. I guess we would onion skin it to being, if we're at work and the business really owns all the pencils and somebody says, I don't have any pencils for my kids at home, you don't take your business's pencils and say, here, take these home to the kids, unless your company has said, you're welcome to the pencils, right? You would get pencils from somewhere else, right? That you had legally gotten to help the person, something like that. Okay. Third exception. No, third exception. If you would break your ordination vows for not much benefit. So if you don't have ordination vows, you don't need to worry about that one. And then if you need to teach them a lesson, but be careful with that one. Number 42, I will avoid taking care of the needs of my students. So in the olden days, the student would come to the teacher, and if they were accepted as the student, they would go and live with the teacher. And then the teacher's responsibility is to take care of that student, both with the teachings and with their physical material needs, which then means the teacher is responsible for gaining sponsorship, And then the students that the teacher have, of course, they also help the teacher do the teacher's job in taking care of each other. So it's not like the teacher is also cleaning and sweeping the place and cooking the food, but they are responsible for the resources for those students. Nowadays, the teacher-student relationship is not like that. Except within the monastic tradition, I think it's still somewhat. But the teacher does take on this responsibility to do the best they can to make it easy, convenient, that the student has sufficient resources to be able to continue. Right? The teacher's responsibility would be to try to keep the teachings available for free, etc. So this is talking about both the physical needs and the spiritual needs. And the spiritual needs will include having a system whereby those students serve each other and the teacher in meaningful ways. Geshe-la says it's not taking care of somebody to just enable them, to mooch off the system. So as a bodhisattva, it sounds like, oh, I'll do everything for everybody. Nobody has to take any responsibility at all. And that can go wrong so quickly that it's not actually helpful to do so much for others, but rather help them help others is how we help people help themselves. And it takes a certain amount of wisdom and skillful means to see how to do that. So the exceptions to this one, if you're sick, if you need to teach them a lesson, if you would break your monk's code somehow in serving the need of the student, if you know they are capable of supporting themselves, and if they are incorrigible and would never make progress, you don't break this vow by not taking care of their needs. Number 43, I will avoid failing to get along with others out of laziness or out of dislike, right? Out of those two states of mind, dislike and anger, or the two other states of mind. I just don't feel like it, or I don't think it's important to do so. We don't make any effort to reach out to somebody that we don't get along with. So there are exceptions. If you know it won't work out, no matter what you do, they and you are still not going to get along. If you're sick, if getting along with them would mean you would have to engage in some kind of harmful behavior, you of course refuse to do it. If they would get angry, if it would break your monk's code, if it is a teacher teaching spiritually wrong things, you don't break this vow by not trying to get along with them and to teach a lesson. Geshe-la pointed out to get along with someone that we don't want to get along with does not mean acting like they act. It's not bodhisattva behavior, right? To go out to the bar every Friday night because you're trying to get along with somebody that you don't like, by doing that with them, that's how you would get along with them. It's like, no, right? That's not That's not required. Then number 44, I will avoid failing to praise someone's good qualities or something good that they have done or said. It's like this habit of praising someone, either to them or to someone else, is the opposite of jealousy behavior. Jealousy behavior wants to point out the negativity of the person we're jealous about. To override jealousy, we find something good about the person we're jealous about, and we say something good either to them or to somebody else about them. It stops divisiveness. To speak highly of someone to someone else means that the someone else you're talking to will think more highly of the person you've just praised, right? So when you understand that, to point out someone's faults or to discredit somebody makes the person you're talking to think less highly of that other person. And it makes a huge imprint in our own mind in terms of the whole society that we see and what kind of conversation is acceptable and not. So it's one thing to fail to praise. It's another thing to point out faults. And it's another thing to make it a habit of pointing out good things about others to others. So this vow is helping us grow in that ability to point out goodnesses, rejoice in others' good qualities. So there are nimes, there are exceptions if we're sick, if we're waiting for a better opportunity, if they would be uncomfortable, if there's nothing true to say, but come on, we can always find something. Wow, your shoes match your handbag. It doesn't matter whether you like the color, it doesn't matter whether you like them, it's true, right? Gosh, your eyes look really blue today. It's true. If you know they would get pride or inflated, if you know how to teach them a lesson, if you're needing to correct an incorrect spiritual teacher, you don't need to praise their good qualities, but you might want to do so just to get their attention. Number 45, I will avoid failing to cut off a person when it's necessary. So there are three things that to cut off means. One is to chastise them when necessary. Two is to punish them when necessary. And three would be to expel them when necessary. So this is addressing the one who might be in charge at the monastery or in charge of the house, that, where there might be someone who's misbehaving, and the bodhisattva may think, oh, I'll keep giving him another chance. I'll keep giving him another chance. But the effect it's having on the group is like everybody's starting to misbehave, or people are starting to fight with this other one because they're misbehaving and getting away with it. And right, all the conflict that would happen in a group if somebody was misbehaving and not getting corrected. So you, the one in charge, might not want, I'm the bodhisattva, I love them so much, I don't want to chastise them, punish them, or let alone expel them. And there are circumstances where it is a bodhisattva behavior to do so, to correct them with love, right? Not hatred, not ill will, But in order to protect the group, in order to protect them, right, all these higher reasons why you have to come down hard on them. So as we expand that into our own worldly, beyond monastic, there are situations where we might be the one in charge of a group and there's somebody misbehaving and we don't want to be the one to have to set them straight. And it's a bodhisattva skill to be able to skillfully, what's the word? Having a senior moment. Discipline someone. Okay. All the way to the place of having to cut them out. You know, sometimes someone who's part of a Dharma community needs to be escorted out of the community. Happens. There are exceptions. If you're waiting for a better opportunity, if they'll never listen to you anyway, if they'll be self-correcting, and if expelling them would cause a major split in the group, you don't break this vow by not doing so. All right, we're on vow number 46. It's the last one. Geshe Michael says, once you know them all, it's much more serious to not behave according to them than before we actually learned about all of them. So he said, you know, if you're not sure you want to be on the Bodhisattva track, now is the time to click off. Please don't. But if all of this is too scary and you really aren't interested, now's the time to say, I'm so sorry. Good, thank you. Going once, going twice, going 3 times. Thank you for staying. Number 46, I will avoid failing to use my supernatural powers when it's necessary to do so. There is an oral tradition of our lineage that you are now a link in that lineage. And those instructions, not written down, say that you must not reveal your miracle powers once you have them. And the reasoning is that for those for whom Buddha's miracles attracted them to his teachings, they required more and more miracles to stay attracted to the teachings. And in the end, those miracles didn't help them. So the lineage that comes down to us says, don't use your miracle powers to attract people to your spiritual path, because they'll just require you to do more and more miracles. The implication is use your apparently worldly behavior to attract them to the path. Be the one in the face of the angry, yelling boss that doesn't defend themselves, but rather says, gosh, I'm sorry you're so upset. How can I help? As opposed to the ordinary human, I didn't do that. Why are you blaming me? You know, I'll help you find out who actually did this, right? The old blame factor. So this vow says no miracle showing. Sorry, our lineage says no miracle showing. Your ability to do miracles comes about as a result of our deepening meditation practice and our growing goodness done by way of avoiding harming, gathering goodness, and doing both with the intention to reach total Buddhahood. You'll get powers from the first two. moralities. It doesn't take bodhicitta to make miracle powers. It's a factor of our ability to concentrate, actually. And then those miracle powers are knowing things that you wouldn't otherwise know, seeing things far away, ability to travel swiftly, ability to actually like show up someplace else. All these different miracle powers that we hear about by the great Mahasiddhis. They're a result of their past goodness, kindness. So once we have these powers, our lineage says, do not use them. And we have this bodhisattva vow that says, when it's necessary, when it's absolutely necessary, you must use them. So suppose you've been guarding your miracle powers, lifetimes long, and then there's some circumstance, I can't imagine what it would be, where to use your miracle power is absolutely necessary to make a difference in the situation. Then to not do so because my lineage says I can't do that breaks this vow. Sometimes Geshe Michael points out that to use your miracle powers is unpleasant. Unpleasant for you and seemingly unpleasant in the situation, but it gets the job done. His example was there was the story of the monk who just couldn't get past his attraction to his wife. And so Buddha said, okay, and took him to hell for a day. And then there is this long story about what happened. And then he went to the other realms as well. And then in the end, Buddha says, so, how do you feel now? And he goes, whoa, my wife is still just as beautiful, but, I'm full on monk now. And then Buddha said, draw what you saw. And it becomes those pictures in the wheel of life about the different realms. So like that, when it comes time, use your miracle powers. Then in your reading, there are a few et ceteras in terms of behavior. They're not enough to be their own vow, but little extra things to know. And then there's a list called the offenses against the wish for enlightenment. They're like a summary of things to avoid in order to keep our bodhicitta growing. There's 6 of them. Failing to support those who deserve it with dharma or material things. We have a couple of vows about that. Number 2, failing to let go of anger when someone hurts us. Number 3, discriminating between people. Like we're always going to discriminate him, her, right? Older, younger. That's not breaking the vow. But meaning because of that kind of discrimination, we like some and don't like others. We're always going to like some and not like others. But how we interact with them should not be related to whether we like them or don't like them. They're good. He's good. They're bad. He's smart. That one's stupid. These negative judgments that we have that influence our interaction with them. we'll have those judgments, but they don't have to influence our interaction. Number 4, failing to take ourselves to a spiritual teacher. Failing to learn and contemplate the Dharma. Failing to think about others as we use objects. So contributing to growing our bodhicitta can be done by training ourselves to be thinking of others as we use anything. So, as we eat our meal for the benefit of all beings, as we put on our sweater for the benefit of all beings, that ability to have that refrain going on, right, keeps our seed planting with a little bit of bodhicitta in all of them, and that's going to help grow our bodhicitta into the real thing. Do you remember, I think it was class 2, we learned, any little deed done imbued with bodhicitta becomes a cause for our Buddhahood. So we're learning all these different ways to imbue our mind, our awareness with bodhicitta. We do it in words, mental words, until it takes. And then you probably don't need the mental words so much anymore. Number 7, we're still in the summary. I said 6, here's a 7. Failing to think of benefiting others as you do the good deeds that you do. So 6 and 7 are pretty close. Thinking of others. So even as we're here in class, like I'm learning all of this in order to help others better. Right? I'm serving tea to you in order to help all others better. It seems fake and superficial at first, but it will grow what we mean by bodhicitta every time we think or say bodhicitta. I can't really help anybody in any ultimate way until I gain the wisdom of how to end suffering. And from that wisdom grows the omniscience to know exactly what that being needs to give up and needs to take up. And I can't reach that state without deeply wanting to help every single living being, every single existing being, without leaving any one of them out. So I wish that everything I do could become a cause for me to reach the ability to really help, to help in that deep and ultimate way, are the words I use. Right? In a way that won't just contribute to the perpetuating of their suffering. Is it a different deed? You can give flowers to your Aunt Mary. And that's a nice planting. You can give flowers to Aunt Mary with bodhicitta in mind. And the flowers that you gave her, the giving of the flowers, becomes a cause for you to be able to someday help Aunt Mary and every other being stop their suffering forever. Same deed, different result, because a different state of mind as we were doing it. That's what these vows are giving us the opportunity to grow. This ability to have a mind imbued with bodhicitta because of the goodness made by just trying to follow these behaviors, avoiding the ones they say to avoid, doing the ones that are the opposite of that. And it grows this goodness. So then, lastly, for this class, we get what are called the 4 black deeds and the 4 white deeds. So these complete the Bodhisattva vow package. And by taking these vows, we're agreeing to try to live by all of them, not pick and choose. So with these black and white deeds, the black deeds are things that we do that damage the power of our bodhicitta. So all of that seed planting, the wish to reach Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings, when we do any of these 4 black deeds, we're like digging away, scratching away at the power of the bodhicitta that we've got in our seeds. When we do the white deeds, we're strengthening the power of that growing fragile bodhicitta. And the result of the black and white deeds is that black ones make it harder for in future lives for us to meet up with the Dharma and the Bodhisattva way of life again. The white deeds increase the propensity to meet up with the Bodhisattva vows again in our next life. So these 4, actually 8, 4 to avoid and 4 to do, help us be sure that if we take Bodhisattva vows in this life, but don't achieve our goal before this life ends, we want to meet up with the Dharma, the Mahayana Dharma, swiftly, powerfully in our next life. And these 4 black, 4 white are the tool through which we improve our chances of being born back into the Mahayana Dharma. Right? So the 4 black ones are the things we're going to avoid. The 4 white ones are their antidotes, the thing we do that helps us avoid the black ones. So the first black one is knowingly trying to deceive our lama in any way or anything. The lama, from our side, the lama is omniscient. So they know that we're trying to deceive them or not. They love us anyway. They are not gonna, stop loving us because of our mistake. It's our own mind that sees ourselves telling a lie to a powerful karmic object. And that's why it's so dangerous. Our mind imprints this karma of having tried to deceive the lama. Our mind sees us probably being successful at it because they go on to love us anyway. So they must have believed, right? Because if they knew I was deceiving them, they would get mad and they would reject us, because that's what we do to those who deceive us. So it's like, it's really is a like slippery situation. But it's like, why in the world would you ever try to deceive your lama? And there are subtleties of that. Like, to really wiggle out of some situation thinking, I did something wrong and I don't want them to know, all the way down to just more subtle ones of, I'll pretend to be gooder than I really am. Like, that's what we're supposed to be doing, is pretending, right? That we're already as amazing bodhisattvas and trying to live by it. But deep down, I'm just a selfish slob. Do I act like a selfish slob to the lama so that I'm not? Do you see? It's more difficult than it might seem. But this one means intentionally. You're trying to protect yourself from them knowing something about what you did or thought or said, as if you could. Right? They know all. There's nothing you need to protect yourself from for them. Just open up. No need to try to deceive one's lama. So the white deed, the antidote, is to never speak a lie to anyone, even in jest. Because if we never lie or deceive anybody ever, we'll never get close to lying to or deceiving, trying to deceive our holy lama. Yeah. Number 2, black deed. To cause anyone to regret something virtuous they have done. the white deed, is to try to cultivate others to the bodhisattva ideal. To get people to aspire to total enlightenment, still mostly by way of setting the example. It's not really so useful to go to somebody who's not really, hasn't expressed interest and say, let me tell you about the pen thing. Let me tell you about how much better you'd feel if you, acted in this way instead. Let me tell you about what it is to become a Buddha. And if their mind isn't open to it, they're just going to get annoyed and push you away. And you'll see that, and you'll plant the seeds of sharing the Dharma and getting the result of being pushed away. We know the two are not related, but our ignorant experience is those two are related, and it chips away at our own belief to some extent. But on the other hand, this is saying, by way of my behavior, setting the example of this kindness in the face of unpleasantness is where you make the most impact. With this intention that as soon as they show any interest, right? Okay, let me give you a little clue or a little hint or something. But our attitude is, I'm doing all of this so that someday I can help everybody reach their total awakening. I don't even call it Buddhism because I don't want everybody to become a card-carrying Tibetan Mahayana Buddhas. I'm hoping that they will become a card-carrying, my deeds create my future, in whatever tradition that they're in, that they can reach their total omniscient, loving state. Number 3, black deed. Saying something unpleasant to a bodhisattva out of anger. And our lineage always points out, can you know who is and who isn't a bodhisattva? I can't yet. So can we justify saying something unpleasant out of anger to anyone if we're trying to avoid saying something unpleasant to a bodhisattva so that we can protect our growing bodhicitta into our future lives? Lama Samati pointed out one day, it's like, whoa, and if I'm trying to be a bodhisattva, considering myself a bodhisattva, can I even be angry with myself? Can I say something unpleasant to myself out of anger? No, actually. So we get to be more kind to ourselves as well. The antidote is called Dak Nung Jorwa. I didn't write it in the vocabulary. It means see the purity. To see the purity means to be training ourselves to always be thinking there's something deeper going on here. I can't see things appear in the way they actually are. They appear to me in the way they do. I know that they are blank. They don't have this identity that I see in them. I know that what I'm experiencing is my karma ripening. I know that there's a reason why all of this is happening. Every detail of this circumstance is for a reason, a cause. I just can't understand it yet. Everything is a perfect reflection of my own mind's past deeds, like my own past deeds imprinted on this mind is creating every instant of this given circumstance. It's possible that every being involved is really actually out to help me get happy. It doesn't seem that way to me right now. But if I apply emptiness and karma and my understanding of what it is to be a fully enlightened being, it could be true that this whole situation is by way of emanations helping me burn off something awful and giving me an opportunity to plant something better, even something ultimate someday. Geshe-la calls it Dharma paranoia. If there's one being who has reached their being a being of love, compassion, wisdom, that love is wanting all others to be happy, ultimately happy. And that love, compassion is what makes their emanations. Then wouldn't it be reasonable to say then that everything that appears to me is a Buddha's emanation? And the only reason Buddha's emanations emanate is to help us reach happiness, ultimate happiness. And their job is to do anything that they need to do to get us there, which isn't always pleasant from our side, but it wakes us up. So this, see the purity, is training our intellectual emptiness and karma, emptiness and Buddhas, to grow this healthy paranoia. Maybe everybody's out to actually help me on my spiritual path. It doesn't look pleasant. Why do we think our spiritual path is always going to be pleasant? You know, I like made my pledge when I become a Buddha, everybody's spiritual path is going to be pleasant. It's going to be fun. And it's like, but previous seeds didn't get planted like that. It's our perfection of joyous effort is having a good time doing our practices to become a Buddha. That means we're having a good time, whether things are pleasant or unpleasant. Because when they're unpleasant, we're burning them off, we're planting pleasant. When they're pleasant, we're sharing them, so we're planting more pleasant. So what's there to be upset about? Right? When we get it, it's like, oh, I see, this really is all fun. And then wham, right, another headache comes or something else hits. And it's like, oh, okay, did I really mean that? I did mean it, but did I feel it? Let's try again. But that's the process. We're not expected to do this all perfectly when we hear it for the first time. We get to learn. Okay, so to see the purity is the white deed. Antidoting, saying something harmful to or ugly to a Buddha, a bodhisattva out of anger. But just see the purity is a white deed. Like we want to be cultivating that regardless of angry words to a bodhisattva. Number 4, I will avoid, the black deed number 4 is to be devious, dishonest, or deceitful towards any sentient being with a bad motivation. Bad motivation means without any sense of personal responsibility for their enlightenment. So here, bad motivation isn't anger, jealousy, malice, or laziness. Now it's like that state of mind that I'm not responsible for their total enlightenment. because that personal responsibility step in the 7-step method for generating our bodhicitta that we actually haven't studied yet. That personal responsibility is what takes our love and compassion and steps across the line to becoming the cause for our Buddhahood. When we understand personal responsibility, we understand that I can't actually achieve personal responsibility until I'm omniscient. Because it takes that to know exactly what the other needs to give up and take up. That we can then be personally responsible for helping them come to see. The white deed is to be totally honest and straightforward with every being we meet. So it's very interesting that out of the 4 black deeds that block our likelihood of meeting the Dharma soon in our next life, 2 of the 4 have to do with lying and deceitfulness. And so 2 of the white deeds have to do with being truthful. It's something to think about. Like, okay. So that completes your Bodhisattva vow package. You have now heard about all of them. And as we learned at the beginning, our first task is to grow our wish to become Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings, so that our wish is strong enough to where we see that, oh, now I want to actually devote myself to the behaviors that will cultivate the result of my wish. And then once we decide our wish is strong enough to help us track our behavior and change our habits, that's when we say, I think I'm ready to actually take my vows to act as a bodhisattva. We are welcome to start acting as a bodhisattva even before we have the vows. That goodness will help us grow our wish. And then our growing wish will actually help us keep our behaviors better and better. And then at some point you go, oh, I see how this works. I'm ready to take these behaviors as vows. And that's when you reach out to someone who fits the qualifications and ask them, will you grant me my bodhisattva vows? So really, not until one feels ready and motivated should we do that. And then when we're ready and motivated, we should act on that rather than, oh, I'll ask later, or maybe it's not convenient for them. Okay, so just be thinking about it. So remember that person we wanted to be able to help at the beginning of class. Hopefully it's getting more and more clear how it is that what we do in class actually will go on to help them in that deep and ultimate way someday. And that will help us feel the completion and be happy about it. And then think of all this goodness like a beautiful glowing gemstone that you can hold in your hands. Recall your own precious holy being. See how happy they are with you. Feel your gratitude to them, your reliance upon them. Ask them to please stay close, to continue to guide you, help you, inspire you, support you. And then offer them this gemstone of goodness. See them accept it and bless it. And they carry it with them right back into your heart. See them there, feel them there. Their love, their compassion, their wisdom. It feels so good. We want to keep it forever. And so we know to share it by the power of the goodness that we've just done. May all beings complete the collection of merit and wisdom, and thus gain the two ultimate bodies that merit and wisdom make. So use those 3 long exhales to share this goodness with that one person. Just share it with everyone you love. To share it with every existing being everywhere. See them all filled with happiness, filled with loving kindness, shining it forth through their behavior to everyone in their world. And may it be so. All right. Thank you again for the opportunity to share. Yes, Chris.
Can I put the link to the video that I
Please,
made in the chat?
Please.
Okay.
please. Want to see it too. Can you play it right now? We have a few minutes. Right, you're muted.
Good. I think it's this one.
You should have clicked the sound. Oh, there.
Okay. Start at the beginning. We got. I will keep.
Oh, the sound cut off.
Huh? Is it working?
Sound cut off. Oh.
I ask you to those in the past who come to place. First in the wishful, and then they travel, and gradually reach one by one. The things that this world to be the same again. I wish And I will learn one by one things that I sent from the sun. And even if my legs hurt so deeply, born as a human, I have joy. Sunshine in the woods. Now, no matter what, I will undertake those things that fit the family I found. I will never disgrace.
That's my husband.
Ah,
And that's me going up Atlanta Medicine Buddha.
nice.
Speaking well of myself and that.
Wow. Wow.
I don't know how to stop share. Oh, I see, stop share.
That is
Thanks
amazing.
for
Thank you so
watching.
much. Yay. Wow.
And I dedicated it to you and and Samadhi on your 49.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That's beautiful. You are amazingly talented. Sweet
It's-
Bodhisattva.
It's fun. But anyway, I hope it helps.
Thank you. All right, everyone. I will see you on Friday. Thank you for all your homeworks. Have a great week.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, teacher.